byproduct of that person something.
Okay.
Then after when he had two crimes, sir, but he accepted only for and everything got, then he was jailed for 10 years, and even but also he continued to do the crimes. So it was.
Okay. Who exposed this particular scam?
So the stock market, when they got to know that they in stock market only, that was known, sir. The prices come down. When they made some research, then they got default.
Okay. Anyone else has any something to talk about? Has
Sir, he
anyone
has
else gone through this
manipulated the
particular scam?
share basically. Hello.
Nobody. Okay. So this is one of the major. This is one of the scams that gave birth to SEBI. Because till that time there was no regulator in the market, and that is the reason people thought that since there is nobody to monitor over them, there is nobody to control over them, they thought they are the kings, and they made decisions on their own without adhering to any laws of the land. And one of the case was the forward rolling forward contracts of bank to bank transaction, and that is where Harshad Mehta came into picture. So I'll explain to you this concept of Harshad Mehta case some other time. Okay, today we'll just go a step further and try to understand what was the situation before SEBI came into picture, and then I'll explain to you definitely how the Harshad Mehta scam took place. Okay, I think I have a video of Harshad Mehta scam. It's a small 8 to 10 minutes of video. I will share it with you. You can go through it. Please go through that particular video. If you don't understand anything in that video, then we'll have a discussion over it. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Fine. So we'll move further as to what was the scene before SEBI came into picture. So what was the scene? We'll just go try to see it, and then we'll move forward with our discussion. Okay. Now I'm just giving you a small gist as to what was happening till 1990. It so happened that in the Indian stock market was not that aggressive, was not that big. It was like any other market. Where you go to buy vegetables, where you go to buy clothes. It was just like that particular market. In other words, we can say that the market was very dormant. Dormant was not active. Okay, this was the situation till 1990. Okay, and why it was so dormant or why it was not active is because we had a law called as Controller of Capital Issue Act. There was an act which was passed, long time act, and this act was called as Control of Capital Issue Act, which was a very rigid act that prevented companies from entering into stock markets or trading into the stock markets. So it was a very rigid act, and that is the reason no company ever wanted to go to the stock market to raise money. All the companies went to banks and borrowed loans to raise money. So this was a scene that used to take place prior to 1990. Okay. Then it so happened that the scam took place. That is the Harshad Mehta scam took place. The scam took place between 1987, okay, 1980, in fact 1988 to almost 1991. This particular scam went on. So almost for 3 full years, the scam was taking place, and nobody knew why this particular scam is taking place, or nobody knew that why all of a sudden stock market has become so active and people have started investing their money. Nobody knew this. And there were three main stocks which were very active. One was ACC Cements, that was very active. Second was Hero Honda Motors, and third was Reliance Industries. Okay, so ACC, Reliance Industries, and Hero Honda. These three stocks were very active. And people wondered why these stocks are going up. There is nothing new that is happening in the company. There are no new products that are coming out of the company. All of a sudden, why these stocks are moving up in the stock market? So all of a sudden, the stock market got very active. And it so happened that this person, Harshad Mehta, once upon a time, once he came to the the main branch of State Bank of India in Mumbai, and he got down from a Lexus car. Lexus car during that time was very luxury car. Even the Prime Minister nor the President of India had those cars, but this particular person had those cars, right? So he got down from his Lexus car, and there was one journalist Her name was Suchita Dalal. She saw this particular person, that this person is getting down from a car. He had a house in one of the prime areas in Mumbai, which had an independent golf course and a swimming pool. Now, having a golf course in a place like Mumbai, that too your own, is something great. The first question is, इतने कम टाइम में इस आदमी के साथ इतना पैसा आया कहाँ से? That was the first question. So she tried to investigate, and then she found out that there is a fraud. And once she found out the fraud, she published this particular fraud in Times of India. And that is the reason why CBI came into picture, and they arrested this particular person. Then they came to know the main reason why this particular scam took place is because we had an act called as Controller of Capital Issue Act, and because of the loopholes of this particular act, this person has made this particular fraud. So what did the government do immediately? They abolished this particular act in 1992. Okay, so that was the first thing. So till 1990, markets were very dormant. In 1992, once the fraud was broken out, the details were revealed, CBI came into picture, they arrested this particular person. Then they said that if we arrest this particular person, the story is not going to end here. We have to abolish this particular act so that no further scams of similar nature can happen there. So in 1992, the act was abolished. And then once the act was abolished, they said that we need some authority, we need some person, we need some monitoring entity who will take care of all these activities, and that is the reason SEBI was born. Okay, so no doubt the birth of SEBI was happening. It was gradually nurtured in 3-4 years, but ultimately in 1992-93, because of this particular fraud that took place, SEBI all of a sudden was given the responsibility, first of all, to control and regulate the market. Second, boost the investors' confidence in the market and tell them that no doubt, even if you have lost money, don't lose hope in the market. The market is definitely going to give you better returns. So that was a trust building measure that SEBI had to do. And not only they controlled the share market, but they controlled everything. Okay, they controlled how should the security be priced. They said how should the debentures be priced. They used to decide what should be the rate of interest. Okay, they used to disclose what are the investor protection guidelines, and also the effective delivery system. So everything was regularized, everything was regulated, everything was monitored, and most important thing, everything was streamlined when SEBI came into picture. So this slide basically talks about what happened, why SEBI came into picture, and once SEBI came into picture, what were the roles and responsibilities that were allocated to SEBI. If you find 3 sub points which are mentioned in blue dots, one was free pricing of equities. In other ways, when the Controller of Capital Issue Act was there, the government used to decide what should be your share price. Logically, the market should decide what the price of the particular asset should be, right? The market has to decide. But in that particular time, the government used to decide, right? So when government gave one rate and the market expected another level, market gave one rate and the government gave one rate and the market gave the second rate. This created a lot of fraudulent activities. So the first thing that SEBI did is they said government, you don't price the shares, let the market decide what the price is. And that is the reason today we have free pricing mechanism that is actively available in the market. Next is, not only shares, but debentures also been regulated. Their rate of interest were also regulated. Then they also created something called as Investor Protection Fund. Okay, they created a fund wherein investors were educated by using this particular fund. Investors were taken care by this particular fund. And most important thing is, last point is, they ensured that effective delivery system is established. Okay, that means if Yutika has purchased shares of Infosys and she has purchased 10 shares at 700 rupees, that means 10 into 7, right? One share of Infosys is 700 rupees. So like that, she purchased 10 shares. So Yutika should pay 7,000 rupees plus brokerage, and those 10 shares will go to Yutika only and not to anyone else. Prior to this, money was taken by somebody else, money was paid by one investor, shares were delivered to some other investor. So all these things were happening, and that is the reason effective delivery system was not there. So what did SEBI do? They streamlined the entire delivery system. Is that clear? Next. Okay. Up to this point, any doubts? Because now we are entering into the primary market segment. Any doubts as to what we discussed so far?
No, sir.
So we move on our discussion to the first type of market, that's called the primary market. Now primary means, prime means one. You have studied, I think in your school's level, you have studied what is prime number. Prime means one, first. So any company who wants to issue shares for the first time, they have to issue shares in the primary market itself, right? So stocks, when they are made available for the first time to be offered to the people, it is called as a primary market, or it's also called as a new issue market. Clear? Who can do this? It is done by the company who wants to issue its shares to the public to raise money for the first time. Clear? If subsequently, if the company wants to raise money, then they need not go to the primary market, then they can go to some other market. But whenever a company wants to issue shares for the first time, they always have to go to the primary market. Point number one. Next question is, who is eligible to issue shares, or which company is eligible to issue shares, is the next question that should be asked. Okay, can you raise money from the stock markets? Okay, can Tanaz, can Ritika, can Vishaka, can you raise money from the equity markets or from the stock markets? Are you there, Tanaz, Vishaka and Ritika?
Yes, sir.
Can you raise money from the equity markets? Are you so strong? Are you so powerful? Are you so well known? Do you have so much of knowledge with you that you can raise money from the equity markets? You don't have, right? So in other words, there are certain conditions that have to be followed when you are raising money from the stock markets. And now what we are going to do, we are going to see what is the eligibility criteria that has to be established by any company who wants to issue shares to the people. Clear? Any doubts up to this particular point? Because I'm not getting feedbacks, I'm not getting the responses. Are you able to understand what I'm trying to tell you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I want some responses from other people. Is Dhanashri there? Okay, what I want you is, please on your video, because you just keep your mobile on, and then I don't have a proof that whether you are listening to me or whether you are roaming somewhere out. So please switch on your mobile, on your videos. Okay. Ashwini, can you raise money from the equity markets? Mrinali, can you raise money from the equity markets?
No, sir.
Why? What's wrong?
Sir, I don't know much about it.
You don't know much?
I think so.
It's very simple. Yeah, let us see what response does Gautami give. Gautami, can you raise money from the equity markets?
No, sir, we cannot raise money from the equity. Only the companies with public companies or private companies which are having a limit. Public companies or private companies which are having a maximum capital, there is a limit for the capital. Those companies can raise money in the equities.
Okay. Somewhat okay, not clear. Fine. First thing is, see, when you are issuing shares to the people, you should be known, right? You should be known. Okay. Suppose, forget about all those things. Just look at this. Suppose in one hand I have a salt packet. Okay, and the name of that particular salt is Vaibhav salt. Okay. So I put my name on that particular packet of salt, and on the other hand I have a Tata salt packet. Which one will you buy?
Tata salt.
One is Vaibhav salt and second is Tata salt. Which one will you buy?
Tata.
Why?
Because it's popular.
One, it is well known. Second, it's popular. It is a trusted brand. People know about it. People have a taste of it. Okay. If I come out with some other brand, if I come out with some other salt, will people buy that particular salt? Even if it is lower price than Tata salt, people will not buy. Why? Because there is an element of trust always which is available. Similarly, in stock markets, whenever you want to give money to any particular company, you should know about that particular company, right? Without knowing that company, will you ever give money to that particular company? Tomorrow, if you give money to a particular company and he turns out to be Vijay Mallya, then what will you do with it? Right? He ran away with your money. Right? So that should not happen with your money. That is the reason the government has said that any company who wants to issue shares to the people for the first time should satisfy certain necessary conditions or should satisfy the eligibility criteria. In the next slide, what we are doing is we are going to see what are the eligibility criteria as far as equity market is concerned. Now pay attention. It looks complicated. It's actually not. Okay. So let us see what is the criteria for issuing shares. So eligibility criteria for unlisted company. Unlisted means the companies who are not yet gone to the stock markets and who have not issued their shares to the common people, but they are going to issue shares for the first time to the common people. They are called as unlisted companies, and they have to satisfy certain basic criteria or certain basic conditions. Okay. So we'll see what are the basic conditions. First condition is, okay, there are two conditions. The first condition is companies which have a track record. So we'll see what is what do you mean by track record. And the second condition is companies who do not have a track record. Okay, that is the first condition. So we'll see only this condition. Okay. Of course, there are some exemptions here. Those exemptions are generally applicable to banks. Okay, everywhere you see the word banking is coming into picture. So we'll see what are the exceptions available as far as banking companies are concerned, right? But for other companies, there are some strict conditions that you have to follow, and let us see what are the conditions. So I'm going to start, or I'm going to deal only with this particular box. Okay. So we call them as companies with a track record, right? Now, what is a track record? They said that any company who wants to issue shares, okay, should satisfy one of the criteria. And what is that criteria? It should have made profits. Sorry. If you look at it, the first point says, just a minute, let the train pass by. The first condition is any company who wants to issue shares for the first time should have made consistent profits in the last 3 years. So when I say distributable profits means after paying, after paying all the expenses, whatever net profits are there, whatever net profits are there, those profits have to be there for last 3 years. Okay, immediately in the last 5 years. Suppose in this year I want to issue shares of my company to the people. That means in the last 5 years, of record, okay, 3 years immediately before the last year, I should have made profits. What does this condition mean? Suppose I want to issue shares to all of you and we are in 2020. So for me, last 5 years is 2015, 16, 17, 18 and 19. These are last 5 years. Out of these last 5 years, I should have made profit in 2019, I should have made profit in 2018, and I should have made profit in 2017. So 17, 18, 19, I should have made consistent profits. Only then I will be eligible to issue shares of my company. This is the first condition that I have to satisfy. Clear? Any doubts in the first condition?
No, sir.
Okay. The second condition says, first condition is you have to make profits for 3 years. Next condition says that you need to have net worth. Okay. You need to have net worth of minimum 1 crore and above. You need to have net worth of minimum 1 crore and above in the last 3 years. That means 2019, 2018 and 2017. In all these 3 years, I should have had my net worth of minimum 1 crore. Okay. Now, first condition is, what do you mean by net worth? Can anyone tell me what is net worth? How do you arrive at net worth?
Assets minus liabilities.
Assets minus liabilities. How can that be? Assets minus liabilities, you will get zero, right? Because ultimately your balance sheet tallies. How do you calculate net worth? Of course, assets minus liabilities, that's one of the means. But what is the actual method to calculate net worth? I think in your FM you might have studied this financial management. When it comes to
So there is a method called as multiplier method.
Swapnil, can you come once again? I could not hear you.
Hello.
Yes, go on.
There is a method called as the three methods. Multiplier method is there. Then
Okay, multiplier method is one. Second.
hello.
Yeah, go on.
So there's a method based on sales, like some 3 times of sales or something like that.
Something like that. Okay. So do one thing. This is for all of you. Please try to find out how do you estimate net worth. Okay, because you need to know what is net worth. Okay, so that's a, what do you say, an assignment for you. In my afternoon class of tax, we'll recollect what do you mean by net worth. Okay. Anyways, I wanted to tell you, but let it come from you. What do you mean by net worth? So before the shares are issued, the company should have a net worth of minimum 1 crore in the last 3 years. That is the second condition. The third condition is, it should have tangible assets. That means physical assets, not patents, not copyrights, not licenses, not intangible assets, but tangible assets like plant, building, machinery. Okay. Tangible assets, it should have tangible assets worth 3 crores. Okay. In the last 3 years, that means in 19, it should have tangible assets of 3 crores. In 18 also 3 crores, and in 17 also it should have 3 crores. I'm not saying 9 crores, where 3 plus 3 plus 3, it is not 9 crores. Average of these 3 years, okay, every year it should have minimum net tangible assets of 3 crores. That is what I'm trying to tell you. Okay. And most important thing is, out of these 3 crores of assets that you have, 50% should be held in monetary assets. That means 50% should be liquid cash. That means either it could be in cash, either it could be in bank, either it could be in marketable securities. But 50% of these 3 crores should be in liquid form. That means it should be easily converted into cash. That is the third condition. Okay. Now, please tell me, any one of you has any doubts in these 3 conditions? Because if I have to go to the 4th conditions, you have to satisfy, or you have to understand all the 3 conditions basically. Any doubts in understanding these conditions?
No, sir.
I'm getting only responses from Rohin and Swapnil. Anyone else? I see 19 people attending.
No, sir.
In fact,
No, sir.
people attending the class. Okay, we come to the 4th point. The 4th point says, if the company has changed its name in the last 1 year, right? If the company has changed its name in the last 1 year, at least 50% of the revenue should have come by the new name. Okay, suppose my name of my company was XYZ Limited. Okay, and in the last year, somewhere in June, July, I changed my company's name from XYZ to ABC Limited. Now, if the total revenue that I'm earning from in that particular year is say 100 rupees, 50 rupees should have come in the name of ABC Limited. That means after I change my name, at least 50 rupees should have come by that particular name, right? That means people know you. That is a condition that they have to satisfy. So 50% of the revenue should have occurred by the changed name. Okay. When all these 3 conditions are all these 4 conditions are done, then you are eligible for issuing shares to the public. Of course, there is one more condition, and that is, whenever you want to issue shares to the people, there should minimum 1,000 number of people should be there in the participant. Of course, When we have a country like India, when the population is 1.3 billion, finding 1,000 people is not a big task, right? So the condition is there should be minimum allotment of at least 100 numbers or 1,000 numbers as far as share issue is concerned. So last point is not that relevance, but the first 4 points are very, very important for you to understand what could be the eligibility criteria. And this criteria is for those companies who have a track record. And what is a track record? 3 years of profit, 1 crore of net worth, and 3 crores of tangible assets. This is a track record. Suppose any one company does not satisfy this. Suppose there is any one company who does not satisfy this condition, then we can call this company as a company without a track record. Are you able to understand? If all these 4 conditions are satisfied, then we can say the company has a track record. But if any one condition is not satisfied, right, then we have to call this company as a company without a track record, and we have to see what are the conditions for companies without track record, right? Now we have come to the next part. We'll go to this part. Okay, this part says that companies who do not satisfy these conditions, that is track record conditions, we call this company as companies without track record. And what are the conditions that they have to satisfy is what we have to understand. First condition, it says 50% of the offer that you are making for the people should be allotted to QIBs. Okay, now what is QIB? QIB stands for qualified institutional buyers. Okay, we'll come to what is QIBs at a later stage. We'll understand what are QIBs. But all your money or all your shares should not be given to people. 50% of the shares should be given to QIBs. In other words, suppose Rohin is there and she wants to raise money for her company. She wants 1,000 rupees. Okay, 1,000 rupees, I'm saying it's very negligible, but it will help you to understand. Suppose she wants to raise 1,000 rupees for her company and she does not satisfy all the conditions. That means she is a company which does not have a track record. So I have to categorize her as a company without a track record. The first condition that she has to satisfy is she cannot issue all these shares to the people. She has to allot 50% of the shares to QIBs. That means only 50% of the shares will be available for general public. 50% of the shares will be available only for QIBs, that is qualified institutional buyers. Okay. Next, if Rohin's company is a project-based company, that means they are into construction of greenfield projects, or they are in construction of if it is a project-based company, then she need not satisfy this condition. She has to directly jump into the next condition. And what is the condition? The condition is 15% of the shares should be allocated to financial institutions and banks. Okay, 10% of this is for an appraiser and 10% to be qualified institutional buyers. If you just add up this 10 plus 10 plus 15, how much is it? It comes to 35.
35.
So 35% of all her shares should be reserved only for QIBs, for banks, and for appraisers, and only remaining, that is 65%, should be available to the general public. Clear? Apart from
Yes,
that,
sir.
if you see here, there is a plus sign. If it is a project-based company, there is a plus sign. If it is a normal company, there is a plus sign. Apart from satisfying this condition, she also has to satisfy this condition. That means minimum post-issue value should be 10 crores. That means she has to issue shares minimum worth 10 crores. Okay, if she has to raise money, she has to raise money minimum worth 10 crores. Now my condition is Rohin wanted 1,000 rupees. Does she qualify here? She does not qualify because she has to issue shares worth minimum 10 crores, only then she qualifies here. Otherwise, she does not qualify. So if Rohin wants to raise money into this particular segment, the second segment, that is without track record, first is she has to check whether she is a project-based company or a normal company. If it is a normal company, 50% of the shares has to be given to QIB, and after giving 50% shares, the remaining 50% should be issued to general public. In other words, if you see down, out of 10 crores of total money that she is going to raise from the market, 5 crores should come from general public and 5 crores will come only from institutional buyers, that is qualified institutional buyers. The total of it comes to 10 crores. If Rohin's company is a project-based company, then Okay, 6.5 crores has to come from general public. Okay, 1 crore will come from QIBs, 1 crore will come from appraisers, and 15%, or that is 1.5 crores, will come from banks and financial institutions. The total of it will come to 10 crores. Are you able to understand this particular slide?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I don't think any one of you in your graduation classes might have ever thought that issuing shares is so complicated. But these are the conditions that you have to satisfy. By the way, this is only for companies. If you are a banking company, then you have to satisfy these conditions. Okay, if you are a banking company and if you are coming under the Banking Regulation Act of 1949, then you are exempted from all these conditions. You need not satisfy these conditions. Next, a corresponding new bank is been set up under a Banking Companies Act 1970, then also these conditions need not be satisfied. Okay. Next, if you are an infrastructure company and if you are into projects and that project is approved by a public financial institutions, then you need not satisfy these conditions. Okay. And if you are a company and if you want to do a rights issue, then also you need not satisfy these conditions. So these are exemptions. So banks are exempted, infrastructure companies are exempted whose project is approved by public infrastructure company or public financial institution company. These companies are exempted, they need not satisfy these conditions. But apart from these companies, all other companies have to satisfy all these conditions. Either this condition with track record or this condition without track record. Any doubts in understanding this? I know it's a bit complicated to understand, to digest, but can't help it. I've tried to make a zip file of it and put everything into one slide so that if you open this slide in one shot, you'll understand what are the eligibility criteria. Any doubts in this?
No, sir.
Okay, fine.
No, sir.
Now, we know what are the eligibility criteria based on the previous slide. We'll move on to the next one. We have to understand what is pre-issue obligation. That means before issuing shares, what are the conditions that we have to follow as a company? And remember, we cannot do everything on our own. Okay, suppose we have Rohin here, and Rohin is into a business of manufacturing chairs. Now, your job is to manufacture chairs and sell chairs. Do you know how the stock market functions? Do you know how what are the procedures that you have to follow to issue shares?
No, sir.
Companies are not expert in that. So what do? They take help of other people. And who are these other people? We call them as intermediaries. Okay, we call them as intermediaries. So we are going to understand what are the conditions that a company has to follow. Okay, and what are the conditions that an intermediary has to follow. And based on that, how the procedure of issuing shares happens. This is what we are going to understand. Is it clear? I think next class is actually my class as per timetable. I have taken DGK's
Yes, sir.
because he has to attend some meeting. Next class, I will continue for half an hour and then you can take a lunch break. Okay, I want to complete this because this is very important from your academic point of view and exam point of view also. Okay, so this meeting is about to get over. Once the meeting is over, please log in again and we'll continue from this particular slide itself. Okay, so I request everyone to log out and then we'll log in again.